So you have Biden pulling off a series of gaffes in the US. But this tendency seems to have crossed continents and made its way to Americans in other places, like India. Yesterday, we saw a foot-in-mouth moment here. Courtesy Eric Garcetti, the US ambassador to India, Garcetti thought it was a good idea to lecture India over Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent trip to Russia. Take a look at what he said.
I know that India, and I respect that India, likes its strategic autonomy. But in times of conflict, there is no such thing as strategic autonomy.
That was a shot fired at India and its relationship with Russia. The first rebuke was soft, but Garcetti followed it up by talking about India's relationship with the US.
Because this relationship in Washington is a special one indeed. It is very wide. In Washington today, where very few things unite American political leaders, it is bipartisan, it is bicameral, and it is bi-branch. But as I also remind my Indian friends, while it is wide and it is deeper than it's ever been, it is not yet deep enough. That if we take it for granted from the Indian side towards America.
He said that the India-US relationship is, quote unquote, not yet deep enough. And he warned India to not take it for granted. Basically, he told New Delhi to not push its luck, because the US may change its mind about the friendship. And this is the latest in a string of American lectures. First, there was Matthew Miller, the US State Department spokesperson. Listen to what he said.
As I said yesterday, we have been quite clear about our concerns about India's relationship with Russia. We have expressed those privately, directly to the Indian government, and continue to do so, and that hasn't changed.
Miller said that the US raised its concerns with India privately. Unwarranted, but at least it was private. Then there was the public rebuke by Ambassador Garcetti in New Delhi. His tone may have been friendly, but his message was not. And finally, there was Jake Sullivan, the US National Security Advisor. Yesterday, he said, and I quote, "We've made clear to every country in the world, including India, that a bet on Russia as a long-term reliable partner is not a good bet." Sullivan's statement is extremely ironic. He talks about Russia not being a reliable partner. And he said this yesterday, within hours of Garcetti telling New Delhi to not take Washington's friendship for granted. You can't make this up. The Americans really need to get their story straight. And more than that, they need to get with the times. They never liked India having strategic autonomy. It was the case in the last century as well, when the US was fighting its Cold War against the Soviet Union. India wanted to maintain good ties with both sides, and this angered the Americans. So they chose to lash out by supporting India's arch enemy, Pakistan. We all know how that's worked out. Pakistan is a terrorism hotbed, and India is the world's largest democracy. This happened despite the US being on the opposite camp. A camp it chose because it disliked India's strategic autonomy. And now it is making the same mistake again by consistently lecturing India about its ties with Moscow and warning India about not taking American support for granted. It's like a song stuck on loop. Washington needs to come out of this old world mentality. It could not shake India's resolve in the last century when India was significantly less developed. So what makes the Americans think that they can influence India now? India is fiercely protecting its strategic autonomy. Garcetti said there is no such thing as strategic autonomy in times of conflict. But whose conflict? This is not India's conflict. It's time Washington accepted this.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment.
So thank you for making Firstpost 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree for humanity, one tree for Mother Earth, one tree for our future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
On the show today, the T20 World Cup bandwagon has moved across to the West Indies. What can you expect from this?
Hello, I'm Alison Green, coming to you from Durban, South Africa. Today we have a special show.
Start with a report on India's shifting nuclear posture. The first time since India officially became a nuclear power.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Aaron Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.